Hi, I'm Brian Barnett, Mayor of the City of Rochester Hills, welcoming you to another exciting episode of Right Down the Street. Thank you for joining us. Right Down the Street has been a wonderful opportunity for us to tell the stories of some amazing people doing things right down the street, but impacting not only just the greater community here, but folks around the globe. And today our guest is one of those incredible people who's making a pretty big impact. We're here at the Rochester Hills Emagine Theater, and we're going to be talking with the CEO and chairman of the Emagine Entertainment Group, Paul Glantz. Now, the theaters are a big part of a lot of people's holiday experience. There's some great movies out now, and we're going to get a sneak peek behind the scenes of what makes this such an exciting place. I'm excited to introduce you to Paul Glantz. So we're here in the Emagine Theater with the chairman and co-founder of Emagine, Paul Glantz. Paul, thanks for having us here. Probably the only time in this month that we'll be the only people in this theater. But tell us a little bit about, first of all, thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure.
And tell us a little bit about your Rochester Hills location first.
Well, Rochester Hills was really an idea that my then partner, John Goldstein, had. AMC, of course, occupied this building prior to us coming here, and I thought that the landlord was strictly using us as a lever in order to extract a better rent from AMC. But after a while, they got tired, and they said, "No, we'll actually do a deal with you." And so we signed a lease, and we opened for business, of course, in December 2010.
And you have how many theaters here?
Well, when we first started out, I want to say we had 10, and now we're up to 13.
Yeah. And this is just one. Of course, this is your favorite theater, right? You always tell me that.
Oh, it is my favorite theater. It's my home theater.
It's his favorite theater.
My wife, Mary, and I come to the show here.
You have how many theaters now across several states, right? I mean, the Emagine empire has kind of grown.
It has. I mean, we're predominantly located here in the Midwest. We're in Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and my licensee, John, has theaters under the Emagine brand name in Minnesota.
Yeah.
So all in, we have 27 theaters. I'm personally responsible for 15 of those.
All right. So before we get into all that, congratulations on all that growth and success. You probably, well, maybe you did. Did you grow up as a youngster going, someday I want to own a bunch of movie theaters? Or was this is a unique career path that sort of resulted later on in life?
Well, we never know where life takes us. And I can't tell you that I knew as a young man that I wanted to be a movie theater mogul. But my mom enjoyed movies, and I would go to the show with my mom frequently. My dad was not much of a moviegoer, and so I was her date, and we went to see wonderful films at Nicholas George Theaters back then, and it just sort of evolved. It was a business opportunity that we became students of the industry, and then we thought we'd make it a real thing.
That's a great story. Talk about the industry for a minute, because obviously we're here in the month of December. There are some massive holiday blockbusters out now. You and I have both seen Wicked, Gladiator. I haven't seen Moana yet. You have.
Yeah.
What does that mean? You know, when these theaters, these production groups are putting out these big hits, these blockbuster hits. What does that mean for you? How does that trickle down to your level?
Well, of course, we license these films from our Hollywood studios, and their new studios as well now, like A24 and Angel Studios, that are filling the gap because the majors have not provided us with quite the quantity of films we were accustomed to prior to the pandemic. But needless to say, when they have a blockbuster film, it certainly benefits us because it packs the house. And you know, our fixed costs are substantial, whether it's rent or a mortgage payment, utilities, property taxes, managerial labor.
The property taxes are reasonable here, though, right?
Here, they are very reasonable. In fact, yes, other municipalities here in Detroit, not so much. But, Royal Oak, you're not listening, are you?
No, nobody watches from Royal Oak.
Good. But, but needless to say, we need blockbuster films. We need more films, to be honest with you, to bring people in, and we need product that appeals to all demographics.
Sure.
Kids films, romantic comedies, horror films, you name it. We'd like to have something for everyone.
Sure. Now, staying with the industry for a minute, you've been around for a while. You've seen the industry change. What do you think are some of the largest things? I mean, you have to obviously stay up with technology. There are all sorts of competitive forces that are kind of always existent, sometimes always changing. What does that require you to do as a leader in this industry?
Well, you better keep your eyes open, your ears to the ground. And I don't know if you know this, Brian, but we were the first in the world. We had 3 theaters at the time to actually convert to all digital projection. And we had 46 screens at the time. It was in 2005. And it was a wise move on our part because the industry was going to get there. Somebody had to kick it off to light the spark. And we did that. And, of course, we've innovated with immersive sound, with, enhanced food service, with adult beverages. I mean, it's all about providing our guests with a great out-of-home entertainment experience. And we're constantly looking at new technology. And, of course, we're constantly battling indirect competitors like streaming.
Yeah. Talk about streaming for a minute, because obviously, even in the last few years, you've battled COVID, shutdowns, you've had a writer's strike, you've got the constant, evolving nature of Netflix and streaming. What does that mean to you? What does that, how do you prepare for stuff like that?
Well, as an entrepreneur, you just have to get up every day and be prepared to establish a value proposition in the mind of your guests. And, the truth is that pundits have been forecasting the demise of our industry since the advent of television.
Yeah.
And yet here we are. We're still sticking around. We're surviving. In fact, we're thriving. And I think it's because we've paid a lot of attention to how to enhance the quality of the experience. And so one of the things I'm not proud of is that we weren't the innovators in reclining chairs. We saw one of our competitors do it and triple their attendance. By golly, we sure did it all in at that point.
Now, the cuddle chair is your idea? Because you and I have actually shot some stuff in cuddle chairs.
Yes.
I don't know how many people can say they've cuddled with Paul Glantz here at the Emagine Theater. We have. The cuddle chair is one of your thoughts?
I actually am the father of the cuddle chairs, yes. And the answer there is, and it doesn't sound very exciting, but I don't care if I put the first row of chairs back 500 feet from the screen, still nobody would want to sit in the front row.
Yeah.
And so the whole premise of the cuddle chairs was to take something that was inherently unsaleable as real estate and make it saleable.
Yeah. There are lots of teens throughout Southeast Michigan who are grateful for that innovation of the cuddle chair, I'm sure.
They'd like it better if it was in the back row.
Let's keep
but
it
we
in the
put
front.
them in the front row.
The physical nature, talking about the physical nature of changes in theaters is unique because you have some theaters that have incorporated more of a bar scene. You've got bowling. You've got, more of a rental component to those. How are those doing? And is that sort of where things are heading, or do you think you've captured that and now it could be going in a different direction?
Well, I would say that for the most part, we're big believers now of sticking to our knittings. We've tried restaurants, we've tried bowling centers, event centers, and to be candid with you, the labor didn't scale the way we would have liked, and so it didn't turn out to be as profitable as we would have needed to reward our investor capital. But we opened a new theater just a little over a year ago in Batavia, Illinois, which has a party room, just like in Royal Oak. And the difference is there, we have duck pin bowling.
Okay.
And these are on strings, they're smaller pins. It's sort of a cross between skee ball and bowling.
Yeah.
And the bowling ball doesn't have any holes in it. It's fun. It's really just a party room is what it is. And it was due to the fact we had space that we couldn't utilize as movie theater space.
Yeah, interesting. Talking about the theaters, let's talk about you for a minute. So obviously you've been an entrepreneur and you've been in the business world for a while. You had a company prior to, you were a CFO and then the CEO, all right, of in the financial industry, is that right?
Yeah, it was actually in the insurance industry. It was a company called Proctor Financial Incorporated. And for many years, I served as a CFO, and then later had the privilege of serving as CEO of Proctor Financial. And that company is still doing well today. I departed about 6.5 years ago, and it enhanced the quality of my life doing so.
Going from sort of the insurance business into the movie business, I'm sure there's some things that carried through running a business. Obviously, there's understanding, obviously capital and things like that. But what was the most interesting difference between the movie industry and the insurance industry?
Well, probably the way you market yourself. But I'd say there's more in common than there's difference. So, for example, I think treating your teammates with respect and giving them both the responsibility. When you give somebody responsibility, you have to give them the corresponding authority. I think that's critically important with your teammates. And then I think it's all business about, and government as well, it's about taking care of your customer. In our case, they're guests. And that was my mantra at Procter. It's certainly been my mantra always at Emagine, that our job is to serve our customers. In fact, I believe all success in business is born out of serving one's customer effectively. Yeah. And if you ever take your eye off that ball, you can begin to get in trouble pretty quickly.
We say, and I believe in my industry, in local government, we are absolutely at the core of the customer service business. And always feel like our competition isn't our neighboring communities, but it's people who do customer service well, like Amazon, Nordstrom, and those people that are in the private sector, because people experience that. And the same with you. I would imagine that you can't expect great service somewhere and not expect it when you go to your movie-going experience. You want to have the same sort of luxuries, attentiveness to your needs and so forth. It's a good approach.
That's why another commonality I would say is that we have to engage people who genuinely care about other human beings. There are some folks that are sort of ambivalent about other folks and so forth. That doesn't work in our business. You have to care about our guest experience, or else you have to succeed elsewhere.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about the marketing of a place like this, and you yourself are kind of one of the marketing angles of the Emagine Theater. You've at some point someone decided, maybe it was you, to put yourself in all the promo commercials, and you're a bit of a D-list, maybe B-list celebrity in Metro Detroit. Could you ever have imagined that when you were working at Procter, that people would recognize you around town?
No, but it is fascinating. Even I've been on vacation in Europe where people have recognized me. And so here's a funny story. At Piggly Wiggly, which is a grocery store chain, they of course they have a pig face for the mascot. And the saying is, when you see this face, you know you found the right place. That means I am the Piggly Wiggly of Emagine.
I've been places with you where we've done some judging in some high schools and so forth, and the line to get the picture with you was, I'd say generously, 75 times longer than the line for me. And actually, I ended up just holding the camera and taking pictures of you with all the students that wanted to get their picture with you. Does that bother Mary at all, that you're kind of this famous guy now?
No, she gets recruited to take the photo sometimes too. She tolerates that quite well, I'm glad to tell you. Yeah. But it was never really my intention to become a quasi-celebrity. Yeah. But I thought that personalizing the business was a wise decision. And it was born out of meeting a guest who said, wow, this must be owned by some giant media corporation. And I'm thinking, no, I largely own it, and I still guarantee a lot of debt here. And so I felt like, it harkens back to old-time television in Detroit. There was Mr. Belvedere, and there was Ollie Fretter, guys on TV who would pitch their products. And if you felt good about Paul, then maybe you'd feel a little better about going to one of his theaters. And at the margin, I wanted folks to decide, okay, it's not just about what film I'm going to see and the time it's showing, but if there's a choice, this guy seems like a pretty good guy. Why don't we go to his place?
Yeah. Here with Paul Glantz, Chairman and CEO of Emagine Theaters. Speaking of Paul, getting to know Paul, and one thing I think that you do in those is you always thank people for coming to the theater, and I think that's an important close for any CEO, and probably an understated message. But when you're not shooting all these commercials or checking on your various theaters in various states, what do you like to do?
Well, I bought a boat, and we live on an inland lake, and so we spend some time on the boat. I enjoy traveling.
Okay.
And so, and now I'm blessed to have 2 grandchildren, and nothing better than that. And so,
are they of movie-going age yet?
Not quite, but they will be soon. And so between grandchildren, loving wife, great family, boating and travel.
You have a favorite place to travel to, or a place you go back to?
We're going to try to get back to the Caribbean this winter for a little warmth, and always been a big fan of Europe. Been there several times. So, I honestly, if things were to loosen up a little bit, I might try to do a bucket list and see a lot of other places in this world too.
Yeah. Travel is an amazing something I enjoy and to do as much as I possibly can. Well, what advice would you give to people? Obviously, the movie industry is an interesting one. If someone said, "Listen, I'm not going to be an actor, but I'd love to do what Paul has done and maybe get into the business in some fashion," what advice would you give to somebody who might someday want to own a theater or be involved in this industry?
Be tough to replicate what I did in my career just because the way the industry has evolved. You know, when I was first involved in the industry, we had a one-screen cinema with 265 seats, and guests would come and show up and say, "Are you showing the current Batman movie?" We'd say, "No, but we're going to get it in 2 weeks." "Oh, very good. We'll come back in 2 weeks." Now, I think consumers expect immediate gratification. And so I don't know how you could start out with one screen today. But I was certainly blessed that I had made friends earlier in my career who provided capital to us as well. And it's a very, very capital-intensive business. And so I would tell you, if you were trying to get started in any business today, try crowdfunding. Find some angel investors. And that's really what propelled us. The current day Emagine Theater was rooted in two gentlemen that I'd known from my days in public accounting. But for their capital, their $465,000 in 1996, we'd have nothing today.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions about owning a theater? That people might assume, again, because I'm sure it's not as glamorous as it necessarily looks from people that just come here and enjoy a great night.
Well, the number one misconception is that we have a zero cost in our movie passes.
Good.
And so every PTA, every Cub Scout group, every organization wants us to give them passes. And the way it works with the studios right now is you can't accept more than 1% of passes. And then even at that, you have to pay royalties. And our royalties run on average about 60%. So if an average movie ticket is, just for easy math, $10, ours is below that, by the way, you're paying $6 to the studio, whether you charge for it or not.
Sure.
So that's one misconception. The other is there's a lot of stuff that's not glamorous here. And I would tell you, for example, that the janitorial crews, the folks who maintain our venues, they're more important than I am. Because if your floors are sticky or the seats are gnarly, you don't want to go there. And so I would actually tell you that the less than glamorous parts of this business are really the most important.
Yeah. And difficult question given where the last 10 years have taken us, but projections, what do you think this industry will look like in 5 or 10 years? Any thought on that?
You know, it's a tale of two cities right now. We grew during the pandemic. Our bankers hated it, but we did it anyway. And so we had the best year in our history in 23, and it looks like we could get there or maybe even surpass it slightly in 24, which would be an amazing turnaround given the first 5 months this year, which was supply chain constrained by the strikes. But I think that this is going to continue to be a tale of two cities in that for those who've had the inclination and the means to reinvest in their venues and to care for their venues and to continually upgrade them, I think this industry is going to be around for many years to come. If you're capital constrained or you've distributed all your money out to your investors, you're going to be in trouble because guests vote with their wallets, and they're not going to spend their hard-earned money on a mediocre experience.
So, obviously the industry's changed, and there are lots of things that can happen. But when people are successful, there's usually some leadership traits and some people that have had an influence in a leader's life. You're no exception. Who are some of the people in your life that have had a positive impact on you, either personally or professionally?
Well, I think about my mom. My mom was very hardworking. My mom worked before most moms worked outside the home. And so certainly she was a great influence on me. And so, I've had a pretty good ability to demonstrate hard work throughout the years. And I think that that's a critical element. The other thing I would tell you is resilience. I've been told no, or you can't, it's not going to work, and so forth. And you have to find ways to, in fact, make it work. Years ago, we had problems with our film buying. And I had a film buyer who told me, you can't fix it. And at the time, I had accepted investors' capital and said, well, I understand, but if I don't fix this particular film buying problem, I'll never be able to reward the capital. And so I have to try and do better. And so that's a great example of, I think to be an entrepreneur, you have to be highly resilient and you have to persevere. I think those are really important characteristics. And I've learned that from folks over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's an interesting, certainly I agree with your perspective on that. This industry, it's fun. Everyone who comes to the movies, they're usually there for a night out. It's maybe the best thing that's going to happen to them this week. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of challenges, right? You've got the same challenges finding employment. You've got strikes that you can't control. You've got all sorts of product that you can't control. And yet you're still required to deliver an excellent experience every time somebody comes.
I say there are 1,000 details. And so you're constantly scurrying around trying to make sure every detail is right, and it's almost impossible. But I also have the belief that when we foul it off, and we do occasionally, it's our obligation to make it right with our guests.
Yeah.
Because again, our dedication is strictly to the guest experience. And I might have said this already, but I think all success in business is born out of serving one's customer. In our case, customer comes first, second, third, fourth.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and speaking of details, one detail I've noticed is that the Slurpee machine is not on yet, and we are going to make this interview last long enough until I can get a cherry Slurpee on the way out.
You know, it's interesting. We're probably
whatever they're called here.
We're probably going to change Slurpee vendors because these machines have not been enough demonstrated enough reliability to serve all this frozen carbonated beverages.
There we go. Well, you know, listen, Paul, it's we've been friends for a while. I love the way that you talk about your business and the way that you respect the capital investment of your investors, the way you respect the guests and the guest experience. I think that's certainly one of the reasons that you've been successful. We're really proud to have you in Rochester. You've been a great partner, not just on the movie side, but you're really philanthropic. You are involved in so many charities. Maybe just speak about that for a minute. This has given you the opportunity to give back to some causes that are pretty important to you, too.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, I would tell you that the communities have been so good to us that the least we can do, in my opinion, is to acknowledge that by being a contributing member of society, not just, and I think that guests feel better about doing business with you when you don't just take from the community, but you give back as well. And so, you know, there's hardly a charity that calls upon us that we say no. And so among our top charities, of course, Mojo in the Morning and his Breaking and Entering, helping people who are down on their luck. We're very much involved with Jay's Juniors, Jay Towers here in the Metropolitan Detroit area. We, of course, helped the Salvation Army. For years, I served on the Board of Gleaners. I'm still on the Finance Committee there. And so, you know, I'm a big proponent of education. So Mary and I have an endowed scholarship for accounting students at Wayne State University. We're helping fund the MICPA's, Michigan Accountancy Foundation. You name it, we're trying to give back.
Yeah. No, it's a great part of your legacy and your story here. And like I said, we're proud to partner with you. You've been a great friend to the city. And we always end every podcast with the same question for every guest. You've got no prep for this question. So it's a two-parter. So here we go. If you could have lunch or dinner with any individual, either alive or past, first part, who would it be? And the second part is equally important. Where would you take them?
Well, I think it would be fascinating. You talk about perseverance. To have lunch with Abraham Lincoln. And you know, I'll bet the quality of the food we've got today is superior to what he had at the time. And so we might go to Capitol Grill.
Okay. All right.
Or one right here in town. Cruise.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You know. I could listen. You get Abraham Lincoln, I can get you a table. I promise.
All right, that'd be awesome.
That's interesting. Yeah.
There's a guy who dealt with adversity. I mean, I can't think of any greater adversity that he persevered through.
Yeah. Well, a great conversation, Paul. Speaking of adversity, you know, you've gone through a lot even the last 3 or 4 years. We're excited that you know, this holiday season things look great. Great product in the theater. I'm going to come back. I haven't seen Moana yet, so I'm going to be back to see Moana.
And by the way, 25 and 26 are looking even better.
Yeah, you said you got some Marvel products. You got all sorts of stuff coming. So we know that our Rochester Hills folks will be back at the Rochester Hills Emagine Theater for more movie-going experiences. Paul, thank you so much for being on the show. We appreciate you. We appreciate all that you do in our community, and we appreciate you, our very valued listeners, for tuning in to another episode of Right Down the Street, where we bring the great stories of the tremendous people that are doing amazing things in and around the Rochester community, in actuality, right down the street. Until our next episode, we'll see you soon, and maybe between now and then, we'll see you here at the Emagine Theater. God bless.